Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this plenary session on green hydrogen and the role that InnoEnergy takes in this very interesting subject. My name is Jacob Ruiter. I'm, apart from being the CEO for the Benelux region within InnoEnergy, I'm also the Managing Director for the European Green Hydrogen Acceleration Center. And before I give the word to Martijn and Kamel, who will be moderating this panel session, I'll give you a little bit of framing of the existence of the European Green Hydrogen Acceleration Center, why it was formed, our vision on the particular subject, and how we have already started various projects and company building exercises that you maybe have been made aware of. So, this started about 2 years ago, after the success also of the European Battery Alliance. We thought about setting up value chains around green hydrogen. We took a little bit of a different approach here because at that time there was a lot of emphasis of driving down the price of green hydrogen, where we saw an opportunity to not so much approach it from the angle of driving down the price of green hydrogen, because why would you make green hydrogen if you don't know the end use of it yet? As also, by the way, mentioned this morning by Kirsten Jorna. So we took the approach, well, hydrogen should be the means and not the goal, but the goal is to decarbonize hard-to-abate industries. We did our homework. We saw that there are industries in this today that are fairly hard to get rid of the CO2 footprint, and we came up with the vision, okay, hydrogen should be used, and we only focus on green hydrogen to abate those industries. And those industries are steel, cement, heavy-duty transport, and chemicals. So in the meantime, we've set up a team especially dedicated for the company building and the projects that we do. Kamel Makloufi is here present as well. Unfortunately, Karina, well, not unfortunately, well, unfortunately for me, but Karina is on maternity leave, but we other team members are sitting here in the front row. Martijn is also part of the marketing team. And now already for starting with their first flagship project, which was H2 Green Steel in Sweden, where we are in the cap table, one of the early investors. We started various projects around the Europe, again with the objective to decarbonize hard-to-abate industries. With this initiative, we are supported by Breakthrough Energy that approached to us with the ask, hey, can we support you guys? Because we share exactly the same vision and also want to target exactly the same industries. So we're very helpful with that because with this name and co-branding, we have a fairly large audience that we can reach. As I said, we do two things basically. We start companies. The one that José Noldin is, there he is the CEO of, is an initiative that we started in the south of France, Fos-sur-Mer, that is with the objective to make DRI pellets for the steel industry that has a low CO2 footprint. So that is our second project after the H2 Green Steel in Sweden. And then for the support of the projects, Jorna Kirsten has already mentioned it this morning. For those that were there, we support the Commission on selection and also helping further the projects that are initiated through the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance vehicle. This is our approach. We take a value chain approach. So we start off with the production of green power, then is converted into green hydrogen, and then fed into a process where we can then, again, as I said, abate the CO2 footprint of an industry that is otherwise hard to abate. Important to take into account that we always start with the customer. We start with the customer demand. So we do not start with the project saying, okay, we want to make hydrogen. No, we start with the customer. So for instance, in Fos-sur-Mer, we started with the customer, in this case Faurecia, who is a supplier to the automobile industry that wants to supply green steel. and they are struggling with the question of how to source green steel for their customers, and then we work backwards in the value chain. And we find along the way, we find strategic investors that are willing to come up with seed capital, and then we form a company. So we don't launch a project, no, we fund a company with the strategic partners across the value chain to start building the company and to start building the plant. That is what we do. It's important that we take this approach, so we do not have the traditional approach of a producer, off-taker, producer, off-taker, because what generally happens is at the end of the day you end up with a project that has priced itself out of the market. We take the approach, we look at the end customer, we look at whether or not this end customer is willing to pay a premium for a product where green hydrogen has been used to decarbonize it. And it's a completely different approach than to start off with the production of green hydrogen, bringing the cost down, and then at the end of the day don't even know what to do with it. So now we start with the customer. And then for that, we combine all the interests of those in the value chain into one company, so you also share the risk, but also you put the interest of the company on the first place, and we are much more able to get a speed that you need in these cases. So this is the time I'm going to hand over to my two colleagues, Kamel and Martijn. So I hope you enjoyed this panel discussion. And if you have any questions also for me afterwards, please don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Thank you, Jacob. And welcome to all for this panel around how to abate industry. So of course we are all here because we know that hydrogen will play a key role in defossilizing how to abate industries, and we are happy to give you the opportunity to get access to hear from this roster of experienced individuals that are all themselves reinventing 100 years old businesses. We'll hear about refining, we'll hear about engineering, about steel, about infrastructure, and so on. But first, let's make a short introduction of all our panelists. Let's start with my good friend José. José Noldin, which is the CEO of the company GravitHY, a newly created green and low carbon iron and steel company in France, and one of EGHAC Lighthouse portfolio company. So José holds a 20 years experience in the decarbonization of hard to abate industries. He started his career at Technored, a company which was developing a revolutionary new iron making technologies that is now owned by Vale. He spent then decades in leadership position in Belgium, at Lois, for instance, working on lime dolomite mineral, but always for the steel industry. And before joining GravitHY, José, you were the head of technology and strategy at CSN, one of the largest steel production company in South America. Welcome.
Who is the founder and CEO of pHYnix, a producer of green hydrogen in, amongst others, Spain. Jean-Pierre actually also started his career in steel at ArcelorMittal. After that, he started an entrepreneurial journey and founded Okavanga Energy, as well as the Origin Institute, and that has the ambition to change industrials with a focus on energy efficiency. Currently, he is founder and president of pHYnix, and pHYnix is one of the first independent green hydrogen producers in Europe.
Then let's introduce Rob Penn. Welcome, Rob, which is head of hydrogen and decarbonization at VTTI. So he will be providing its expertise on hydrogen infrastructure imports and also imports. So VTTI, for those that do not know, this company is one of the world's leading storage provider for energy and other products like chemicals. So Rob, you started your career in the Dutch Ministry of Economic Affairs. You hold position in the oil and gas giant Shell and Vopak. You joined VTTI first as commercial manager, responsible of large facilities in the refining industry. And now you act as head of hydrogen and decarbonization at VTTI. You provide your drive to define VTTI's hydrogen strategy in producing, storing, handling, terminaling hydrogen and e-fuels. Welcome, Rob.
Okay, then move on to the next one. And actually, you can maybe see already a pattern. There's a link. VTTI is quite heavily involved in ammonia, but our next panelist, Diego Mendes, who is the technology director of Bondalti Chemicals, is also a large player in ammonia. Diego is a multi-skilled professional with more than 15 years of field and engineering experience in the chemical industry. He has managed multi-million euro projects in the oil and gas industry and was acknowledged as a Shell Process Engineering Technology Authority on the complete LNG value chain. And now he's acting as a technology director for Bondalti Chemicals, but as well is a board member for Green H2 Atlantic, who has the aim to develop a 100 megawatt electrolyzer here in Portugal in Sines.
So one Diogo to speak about chemical industry, another Diogo to speak about the refining industry. So welcome Diogo Almeida, from, which is the head of hydrogen business development at Galp. So obviously oil and gas companies like Galp are right now reinventing their business model, taking, I would say, implementing green hydrogen, but also creating new business model with e-fuels and SAF. So Diogo Almeida will speak about that. He's heading Galp Hydrogen Business Development since June 2021, developing opportunities for green hydrogen and synthetic fuels. So Diogo, you're all the master in chemical engineering from the EIT Lisbon, and 20 years experience in various positions in Galp and the entire oil and gas value chain. Welcome, Diogo.
Okay, and last but certainly not least, and we're happy to have here Elvira. It's Elvira Garcia Marquez, who leads the Environment, Engineering and Technology Department at Sener. And Sener is a Spanish engineering and technology company deploying key technologies in the area of green hydrogen and renewables. With over more than 20 years experience in the energy and infrastructure sector, Elvira currently leads the Energy and Environment, Engineering and Technology Department at Sener, which consists of over 300 professionals. She's a graduate of the engineering school in Bilbao, a postgraduate in distributed generation and renewable energy from the UPV in Valencia, and she also has a business background, amongst others, at ISE Business School, University of Deusto, and ESADE Business School.
So thank you all to be here. Obviously, I would say, and if we look around us, all the food, all the plastics, all the steel that has been produced and transported, very important to us, they were done using natural gas, coal, and oil. And if we want to defossilize our industry, we'll need thousands of terawatt-hour of renewable power, million tons per year of green hydrogen. So happy to have you, Elvira, expert from Sener, to discuss the challenge ahead of us and reduce the green premium. Let's focus on the green premium. So I just wanted to first ask you a question, as you are maybe, I would say, having the broader view on the need on green hydrogen for the industry, being part of one of the biggest Spanish technology and engineering company. So could you give us some key challenges ahead of us to decarbonize hard-to-abate industries? I'd like to know maybe if you see some first movers, if you see first industries that want to convert to green hydrogen.
First of all, good morning. Thanks for the invitation. Proud to be here. Well, this is a quite complex situation, scenario. If we face the technological issues, I mean, for this situation, we need to face uncertainty in technological solutions, I mean, in terms of business. If we have to provide a stable solution for this kind of industries, you are facing not only a short-term solution, you are considering a solution valid for the business for the next years. So apart from administrative issues, regulatory and so on, from the technical point of view, we need to improve the European industry. We need to improve development and technological innovative scenarios in terms of materials, okay, in order to not depend on external resources or everything depending on external resources. And we have also the complexity of collaboration, hybridization. I mean, this type of projects and solutions are not covering also one solution and one technology from hydrogen. Sometimes you have to mix several technologies, and always, and most of them, with more technologies, not only with hydrogen, in order to enable the hydrogen solution valid for the process.
So thank you very much, Elvira. So both technical challenges and business challenges that are related also to what you were mentioning, business innovation and cooperation. So which are maybe what are the main drawbacks to overcome to reach FID? With your broad experience, do you see some key sectors which should be considered as the low-hanging fruit? And maybe some other that must be discarded. Huh? Maybe, you know, hydrogen is not the silver bullet, so maybe direct electrification, biomass, and so on must be a better application better use for some application. Could you give us some insight on that, please?
Yeah, if we talk about first movers in hydrogen, you have those companies that use hydrogen in their processes. You have refineries, you have chemicals, you have also companies that use the hydrogen as feedstock, like fertilizers companies. This, for us, is part of the first movers. You have also the heavy transportation. You have all companies related to this kind of mobility that are also improving and are first users, we can say. The third one for us is not in order, but is part of the first users for us. Is this industry that require these thermal energy processes above 600 centigrades. This means a lot of energy and quite a complex scenario to face. And the last one could be electrical generation and other industries and other consumers. Okay, each sector has different approach. If you see the world, every area in the world are facing different movers, are first movers, and are improving in different way the solution. But part of the solution is common for all of them, and we have to move on.
Very interesting. So many, I would say, industrial sectors which are this low-hanging fruit, and yet, I would say, even if the hydrogen word is a buzzword, final investment decisions are still quite rare. So you, Sener, as a technology and engineering companies, how do you provide, I would say, how do you support project developers in de-risking their project? Do you provide some kind of warranties? How do you make the business model better?
Well, for us, there are several challenges where we could support. We have a great challenge infrastructure. We are a company with different capabilities in terms of engineering and with the capability of providing and co-developing. This is a very relevant co-developing technology solutions because I think that the solution that we can achieve must be in collaboration with companies, with startups, with technology consultants. The research centers are very relevant to try to improve this ecosystem in Europe. We face the project from the beginning to the end. We see an infrastructure from the beginning to the end with sustainable vision. We have the role of engineering, so we have the capability to develop several solutions, several tools valid for the scenario that we have to analyze from the beginning, because we have a lot of uncertainties regarding the projects related to hydrogen, the big projects, okay? If we focus on certain technologies, it's another approach, but if we are facing solutions for certain industry or for certain sector, we have to see in a complex way. So we need to face the infrastructures, we need to face the technologies that could be applied to the solution. We have a very relevant issue regarding the renewable energy infrastructure, because the hydrogen from electrolyzers needs electricity, and this is a challenge for the smart power grid, for materials, for the renewable generation solutions, and also for the storage. Okay, so this is also a part of the solution for the hydrogen.
So co-developing, I would say developing infrastructure, making the power available, and I would say upscaling technology to reduce capital requirement. So thank you, Elvira. Very interesting that we have the next speaker, which is basically one of maybe of your customer, I don't know. But at least I would say...
Partners and customers, I think that should be the same coin.
Exactly. So really happy to have Diogo from Galp, which is a very good example of how to abate industry that is using hydrogen, I've heard, since 1846. That's the history of Galp. So you're definitely a first mover. I wanted to ask you, I would say, this question. If you could, for the sector of the refinery, for example, which is a sector that is using huge amount of gray hydrogen, what is the magnitude of the problem? How much hydrogen do we need? How much financing do we need? What are the challenges ahead?
Well, good morning, everyone. For us, we have our expectation as an integrated energy company, first of all, is to gradually and fully decarbonize our own activity and our own products. So we're starting at one of the low-hanging fruits, according to us, and it's where we can act today within the products that we sell today, and that's where the decarbonization of refining itself starts. For us, Galp is the largest producer and consumer of hydrogen in Portugal. We produce around 60,000 tons of grey hydrogen in our refinery in Sener, in southern Portugal, and that's where we want to start. We expect to install around 600 megawatts of capacity to fully decarbonize this hydrogen need at our process. This means that we'll be able to start selling products with a lower carbon intensity, although obviously at the pipe with the same emissions.
So that's quite interesting because basically you are producing one of the commodity that we need the most. But at the very end of the value chain, there's an off-taker that is using this product and that basically is right now seeing a strong increase of the price of gasoline and diesel at the end of the day. So how implementation of green hydrogen into your refineries will impact the customer? What is the kind of premium we are referring to? Did you go into this kind of analysis already, I guess?
Okay, yes, of course. We need to understand that we have European regulation to promote decarbonization of the energy transport mix. So that's one of the reasons why we believe that it makes sense to do this. For this to happen, we have different solutions. We have electric mobility is an important contributor for that, but it will not be enough to meet the targets that we believe that we'll have by 2030, and we know that regulation is being discussed in Brussels presently for that, but we know that the ambition is high. We then have biofuels who can also contribute to that, but at the end of the day, we lack solutions. And so green hydrogen is one of the different solutions to make us reach that target. Because all the industry has to reach these targets, at the end of the day, it's the end user paying a slight premium on this to support the cost of decarbonization. There will be other tools. We'll have, hopefully, an ETS system for transports. We will need mechanisms to avoid to create a level playing field with other regions. But all that is being prepared. We believe that we'll have a Fit for 55 package that will take this into consideration and will allow us to promote efficiently the decarbonization of the sector.
Thank you, Diogo. So happy to have Galp as a very first mover, I would say, in the hydrogen ecosystem. And what you are doing is quite in line with the recent communication from the European Commission, especially REPower, which is mentioning and targeting 10 million tons per year of green hydrogen locally produced and 10 million tons of green hydrogen imported. So could you explain us a bit of your ambition, I would say, to help achieving these targets?
Okay. I would put this in 3 stages, and they are roughly aligned with what we have on the slide above. We have the decarbonization of our own activity, and there we'll have, hopefully we'll be producing around 60,000 tons of green hydrogen to do that in our refinery. Then we want to help our clients decarbonize. We say that we are moving from B2B and B2C to B2D, which means business to decarbonization. We need to help our clients do this. And for that, we know that maybe 2/3, 3/4 of the emissions we have today can be directly electrified, and that's fine. That's the best way to do it. But then we know that some segments lack the solution for a direct electrification. And that's where hydrogen kicks in, and the derivatives that we can build from hydrogen. So we want to do that. We want to produce fuels for aviation and maritime transportation that are low carbon and zero carbon in the coming years. And we also want to promote decarbonization of our clients, both industry and mobility, by developing these value chains, working with them, supplying them the energy. So this is how we see it. Part of it is done in Europe. Another part may be done in other regions. We need to have the most competitive products in Europe. We know that the European target of 20 million tons of hydrogen, roughly half will come from abroad. When we look at the numbers, also roughly half will be in ammonia or synthetic fuels form. So we believe that these most likely will make sense to produce in other regions with renewable resources, competitive renewable resources, and import to Europe and use here the hydrogen directly that we can, because it's the best way to optimize the whole energy system. So we have an amazing challenge ahead of us.
So that's very interesting. Would you say that you are transforming from an oil and gas company to basically an energy company,
Well,
going from business to the decarbonization?
We already
Yeah.
consider ourselves an energy integrated company.
Yeah.
What we want to be is a zero carbon energy integrated company, which is completely different. But today our portfolio, besides oil and gas, also has power. So we have 9 gigawatts of renewable resources under development in Iberia and Brazil. We expect to reach 12 gigawatts by the end of the decade. So we are already doing that, but it takes time and a lot of investment.
So that's quite interesting because we see, I would say, this vertical integration of EV industry that is changing, I would say, with time. We'll see with José the change into the structure of steel industry, and now also energy, oil and gas, formerly oil and gas companies that are now active with producing large amount of renewables, having still these refining activities, but also betting on the new energy carriers to decarbonize energy as a service, as we say. Thank you very much, Diogo. It's very interesting.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think that's a good bridge to our next panelist, who is working for Bondalti Chemicals. And the same as Galp, they're already a large user of hydrogen as well as ammonia. And they use it in their chemical processes to produce, amongst others, aniline. And I'm assured that everybody of you guys have a product with aniline in your possession without even knowing it. So my first question would be to you, Diogo. Maybe can you share us a little bit on the role of hydrogen ammonia in your company and what it's used for to produce your products?
Absolutely, Martin. Good morning, all. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation. So hydrogen and ammonia are quite important to Bondalti as they are key raw materials for the production of aniline. You mentioned aniline, but for most of the audience, probably they don't know what is it and where is used. So aniline is used in the technologies. So aniline is used for the production of MDI, which is a polyurethane, an important polyurethane that is used for thermal insulation for the panels on the automotives, many applications like in shoes. So you can have aniline basically in many products that we have on day-to-day basis. So basically this means that we have here a great opportunity to decarbonize a vast, long value chain which direct impacts the consumer. So basically in Bondalti we are the second largest consumer in Portugal of hydrogen and ammonia. We produce 20% of the hydrogen that we consume through the electrolysis process, chlorine production electrolysis and hydrochloric acid electrolysis. And 80% of the hydrogen that we consume, we buy it from our partner Air Liquide at Estareja complex, where we are located. And this hydrogen is grey hydrogen coming from an SMR. The ammonia, basically we import around 45,000 tons per year, and is grey ammonia coming from especially north of Africa. So the grey hydrogen and the grey ammonia, this represents around 150,000 tons of CO2 equivalent that we directly put in our aniline and therefore in the MDI and all the downstream products. So we have a great challenge here to decarbonize our production process, and we are doing it.
Okay, great. So now everybody knows where aniline is used for. I think earlier on, but also in Jacob's introduction, we discussed about the value chain approach, and you also indicated that your company is at the very beginning of a very long value chain. You have customers buying your chemicals as an ingredient for their production, but of course those customers also have end customers buying the shoes and the mattresses. If you talk about green premium or the willingness to pay a premium for decarbonized products, do you see at your customers an interest in that? Is that a concept they would be open for?
Yeah, we start seeing it. A lot of pressure from our clients to start introducing low carbon raw materials in their processes. But I would say that is majorly due to the strong regulation that is coming to place. We have the Fit for 55, which clearly states that until 2030, the industries that consume hydrogen as raw material, they have to process 50% as renewable hydrogen. And we have then on the downstream industries where aniline is present, we have the automotive industry and the construction industry with strong legislation to have products with low carbon footprint. This actually is generating a lot of momentum in the entire value chain to find these low carbon products and to try to reduce costs. But I would say that so far the entire value chain is driven by cost, and the premium is still very hard to accommodate.
Yeah, that's understandable. And if you're giving that context of regulation and also customer acceptance, what is the ambition of Bondalti to replace the fossil hydrogen and ammonia with the green variant? Is there a timeline? Can you share some ambitions?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm happy to announce that our project was H2 Enable was approved by European Commissioning as an IPCEI project. So we are very happy for this milestone, although we have probably the most difficult one, which is the project execution. But basically, this accelerates our vision, and it is part of our vision to be an important player on the hydrogen field, basically driven by the need of the decarbonization of our processes, but also leveraged on our capability and experience on the electrolysis process and the production of electrolytic hydrogen to help and to reduce to help the needs of our clients, industrial clients, but also other customers. So the projects, we are basically in two big projects. We have other opportunities, but I would highlight three main projects. H2 Enable, as I said, for industry, for injection in the natural gas grid and for mobility. We also part of one big project with my colleague here, Galp, in the Green H2 Atlantic in Sener, which is actually a high-flag project of 100 megawatts electrolyzer. And we are also looking at opportunities on the green methanol space, using biogenic CO2 with green hydrogen to produce the bioethanol. So yeah, we have a lot of ambition. Now we have in the phase of execution.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. And it's great to see that you're not only approaching green hydrogen as a solution to decarbonize your existing use of hydrogen and ammonia, but that you also see business opportunities and think about new business models going into green methanol. So that's great to see. Thanks a lot. So we started with a broader technology perspective, various industries who are the first movers. Then we moved on to traditional industries using already green hydrogen and ammonia. And now we would like to move to our next panelist. Bondalti is a large importer of ammonia. We need a lot of infrastructure for import of ammonia, but also import of hydrogen. And this morning it was referred to Repower Europe, where there's quite a high target and ambition on European domestic production of 10 million tons of hydrogen in Europe. But there's an equally ambitious target of importing 10 million tons of green hydrogen into Europe. And Rob, VTTI, as an infrastructure company, currently working in oil and gas, making a transition also to hydrogen. What is your vision on the role that imported hydrogen and ammonia could play in this whole energy transition?
I would say...
Rob, your mic.
Hello?
Yeah, perfect.
I would say it will play a very important role because if you look at the recent legislation, or at least the proposed legislation that is there on how you can operate your electrolyzer, you have to make it go up and down with availability of renewable energy sources. So there's a great complementary effect on imports and local production. There are still significant challenges in making those imports work because the import infrastructure isn't entirely there. And the challenge, how big that is, will depend on what form of hydrogen that you're after. For instance, if you look at hydrogen carriers and derivatives, it's fairly easy. If you take the marine sector, from an infrastructure perspective, we could switch tomorrow because we have methanol tanks, we have methanol jetties. We even have in Rotterdam the bunker procedures in place to bunker methanol. So ironically, the marine sector is one of the least incentivized sectors to decarbonize because you can still be in line with emission standards until 2040 on LNG and a bit of slow steaming. But we could switch today on methanol. Ammonia, similar. There are ammonia tanks, there are ammonia jetties. We would need a bit more jetties to do the same amount of energy because ammonia has a less energy density. But if you come to the pure hydrogen, if that's what you're after, that's a bit more challenging because I don't see large amounts of pure hydrogen being stored in ports near populated areas. So then you need a backbone system, ideally connected to caverns, which is not in place everywhere. Then you could imagine, okay, we'll switch to ammonia, where you can have large amounts in ports, I think. But then you either need a ammonia backbone pipeline to the demand center, more inland, with a decentralized cracker, or you have a centralized cracking system in the port, and then you have a backbone system for hydrogen to your demand center. But still, the end point of your pipeline might not be the demand center, so you need more refined distribution from that point onwards, which is a challenge. So you could solve that by saying, well, let's not do ammonia, but let's do organic or inorganic hydrogen carriers, which you can store at room temperature. So you solve that part, but they require an enormous amount of storage capacity because it's only 3 to 7% hydrogen content in there. And you need more jetties, which we don't have. So I think depending on what the end consumer demand is, there is a solution for everything, but the reality is we'll probably need to develop all of those.
Yeah, I think that's clear, and it's a good overview of all the possible directions to go in terms of import. You say that certain commodities you already handle now, but also do you see certain corridors of countries or customer types which are getting active in the import? Do you see also first movers in your industry?
For sure. I think we all know the areas that are what we would call in the first wave. So ARA with probably Rotterdam up front is among the leaders. Northern Germany, UK, those are what we would consider on the import side the leading corridors. You can see backbones developing from there in Rotterdam, in Belgium, in the north of Germany. In terms of industries, refining, fertilizers, heavy transport, steel are the typical ones. And I think with the right regulatory framework, marine could be there as well.
Okay, that's clear. And like a little bit a similar question to the existing industries. So the move or the transition to the greener fuels and the e-fuels, it's a challenge, but it's also maybe an opportunity. How do you at VTTI grab that opportunity and look at the position in the value chain and the possible business models you see being a player in this new area?
Well, I'd say e-fuels is actually quite a happy continuation of our business model because we can store most of those e-fuels in our existing tanks. E-jet, e-methanol, it's all, gasoline tanks can take methanol and they can take jet fuel as well. So I don't think the challenge is as much in e-fuels. We can take that today. Ammonia is a bit bigger challenge. We have ammonia-capable tanks, but most of them are not. But I would say our vision as VTTI is to move from being a storage company to being a conversion company. And by that I mean that we will be in multiple parts of the supply chain converting either electrons to hydrogen, converting hydrogen to carriers or derivatives, or converting those carriers back into hydrogen. That's the role that we see as a storage company to move to being a conversion company.
Okay, that's clear, and it's always good to have some business upside on this whole challenge. And to close off, you were quite active in the import of hydrogen. We also talk about the local production of hydrogen in Europe. How do you see those two? Are they competitive? Are they complementary?
Well, as I said, I think they're to a large extent complementary to fill up those gaps when you can't produce because the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining. In terms of economics, are they competitive? When we look at, again, it depends on what you're after. If you're going to use ammonia as ammonia, probably imported ammonia is cheaper than locally produced. With the current economics of cracking, if you're after the hydrogen, it's probably at par or maybe in the advantage of locally produced ammonia. But then there are two important developments. One is Europe is very much focusing on putting electrons in electrification for all the right reasons, because if you go to hydrogen, you lose 30% of the energy content. So it's the right move to do, but that will put some pressure on locally produced hydrogen. and paves the way for imports. And then second, ammonia cracking economics are still in a very early stage. There's still efficiency gains to be made, catalysts to be developed. So we think the economics of that will improve as well. So long term, I think there will be a very big role to play for imports.
Okay, thanks a lot, Rob. Good insight. Talking about locally produced hydrogen, let's move to pHYnix, who is actually, as said before, one of the first independent European producers of green hydrogen for heavy goods mobility as well as industrial heat. Today we'd like to focus on the heavy goods vehicles, as that's also one of the scope value chains of the European Green Hydrogen Acceleration Center. Jean-Pierre, could you tell us a little bit more of the magnitude and the challenges you face when you talk about decarbonizing of heavy good vehicles?
Yes, hello, thank you. Yes, as you said, we are aiming at two markets. One is the industrial heat, and the other one is the heavy mobility. And our first project that you can see behind will be doing both. We'll be injecting part of its volumes in the gas pipes for industrial heat applications, and the rest will be carried to Madrid, as it is in south of Madrid, carried to Madrid for heavy mobility applications. When we talk about heavy mobility, for me there are three aspects that are very important in our approach. One is that we start with the client, and Jacob knows that because it's one of the keys discussion we had with EIT when they joined InnoEnergy, when they joined the capital of pHYnix. Start with the client, and I'll come back on that. The second is talk about TCO, total cost of ownership, and the third is look at the integrated value chain. So why start with the client? Because you cannot generate the transition to green hydrogen if you don't have someone who wants to do it, and usually the one who really is the leader is the industrial company who needs to carry the goods around in trucks or in trains or in ship, and wants to decarbonize its transport and logistic activity. So we always start talking to these people, and usually they are the companies who have taken public announcements of decarbonization by 2030 or 2050. And once these people are, and they're not going to be the end buyers of the hydrogen, this will be the transporters and the one who operates the vehicles, but they are the one who will generate the move. It could be an industrial company, it could be an airport who wants to decarbonize its activities as well. The second aspect is TCO. You have to you have to look at the issue in terms of total cost of ownership, because when you are thinking of heavy mobility, it's not only the cost of the hydrogen molecule that is important, but it's also the investment you might have to do in either retrofitting the vehicle or buying a new vehicle. And it's how much hydrogen this vehicle is going to consume per kilometer is running. So if you look only at the cost of hydrogen, you're looking at only small part of the problem. And when you look at total cost of ownership, maybe the figures are no longer exactly the same. And if you don't look at total cost of ownership, but value that you are creating by being able, because you decarbonize your activity, getting cheaper access to credit or more market shares, then it's even another story. And when you think of in value, you might already be seeing that the change to hydrogen is already competitive. So that's the second aspect, and it's very important in order to generate the transition. The third aspect is the integrated value chain, because obviously when you talk about heavy mobility, the issue is not only having green hydrogen, it's also having a hydrogen refueling station to refill your vehicles, or several of them if you're having a long distance transport, and having available vehicles. And available vehicles are not necessarily only trucks, they could be buses, they could be special vehicles.
I think that's a very clear description of your current approach, and also quite a good fit to the value chain approach. So you could be, you actually are one of our ambassadors in that case. As a hydrogen producer, you already said that we have to look broader than just the production of hydrogen, and I understood you're quite active in a lot of initiatives, which actually is also around market development, technology development, and you're also part of a retrofit coalition. Can you share something more about that?
Yeah, when we one of the issues when we talk to a company like L'Oréal, for example, and tell them that in order to decarbonize their logistics, they should look into hydrogen. They said, but there's no trucks. When we talk to the transporters, they said they would like to do it, but there's no trucks for now, so what can we do? Anyway, when you talk to the truck manufacturers, you can see that among those who have decided to move to an hydrogen range of vehicles, they won't have the vehicles available in large quantities before 2026 or 2027. And even if you look at the objectives of decarbonization of transport, heavy vehicles transport in 2030 of Europe, if you only take the new vehicles coming on the market before that, you will never make it, because there's not going to be enough vehicles. So talking to the various actors of the value chain, we realized that we had to push the development of retrofitting of existing vehicles. And in order to do that, we built a coalition. So the first coalition has been created in France, and the intention is to deploy it across Europe, where we have not only the final user, companies like L'Oréal, not only the transporters, companies like DB Schenker, not only the retrofitters, which are small, usually very small companies, but also we have investors and equity providers like InnoEnergy, and we have political people or government-associated people who can help regulate and lift the regulations. And the idea of this first coalition we've started in France is to be able to have 10,000 vehicles per year retrofitted by 2030. And now we are around 20, 25 per year. So we have to make a big change.
Okay, that's a great ambition. And it's also good to hear that you take the extra mile to really develop the market, help to overcome the hen and egg problem. And we hope to be able to support you along the way.
So let's finally switch to José. So José, we've seen here a chemical industry, refining industry, the needs of development of infrastructure, the needs of hydrogen for mobility applications. So tremendous hydrogen demand. And steel, of course, and the steel industry is one of the largest, low-hanging fruit for green hydrogen, replacing coal as, a material to reduce iron ore. So we are lucky to have you. So CEO of GravitHY, the fully first green iron company in the world. I was writing in Europe, but it's actually in the world. So can you, José, can you share a few words on GravitHY, what it is?
Well, thanks, Kamel. First, thanks for the invitation and for the hard work that you guys put together to offer this panel. Great lineup. I'm learning a lot today. I know it's hard work, so thank you for taking the time. It's a pleasure for GravitHY to be here. Indeed, GravitHY is actually an innovation on a technology and business, I would say. So actually, we are redesigning the value chain of steel. It's actually a project, a company that was initiated with the InnoEnergy and EGHAC, so which perceived that decarbonizing steel production is not only a possibility, it's actually necessary. After all, steel is at the basis of any and all applications that we see today, from communications to infrastructure to, to energy, everything. At the end of the day, we need steel. So we can only have a truly decarbonized economy if we decarbonize steel. And decarbonization of steel is actually something that we can address to one specific step, which is the production of iron. So historically, the value chain of steel, we come from the iron ore, we go through all the different steps, and the steel producers, they are used to have a fully integrated vertical value chain. With GravitHY, we are actually bringing the power of hydrogen to decarbonize steel production by decarbonizing iron and redefining the business model, which means producing intermediate product, which is the iron that later will be transformed in steel. And by doing so, we'll take, for every ton of steel which is produced today, 2 tons of CO2 are emitted. And with the GravitHY, actually, we will be able to help the steel industry in Europe and worldwide to produce decarbonized steel for the different applications.
So basically what you are doing is produce solid burnable under the form of direct reduced iron, and you will make it available to all incumbents I would say, which maybe would not have the same access to renewable capacity. Could you say, I would say, some word about what's the relationship of GravitHY with the incumbent and how your strategy compared to them?
Actually, GravitHY for the incumbents and for the established steel industry, we are a good hand for them. They have a great, big challenge to decarbonize their production. And in order to do so, they have to transform the way the iron units are received and processed. So with the GravitHY, our goal is to make, in a first plant, 2 million tons of DRI, which will be then sold to the classical steel industry in Europe to produce decarbonized steel. And by doing so, they can focus in their core business. This is something that I like to stress. It's an innovation in the way steel is produced. It's an innovation in a business model. Now we see iron as a business. And then steel makers, they can focus where the core business is, which is steel production, steel product development, what kind of a steel the automotive industry will need in the future, knowing that the access to the iron molecule will come from companies like GravitHY, which will find a role to play in this new value chain. It's a new revolution.
Indeed. So maybe you will be a part of the answer for my next question. With your extensive experience in very large player from the steel industry, what decided you to jump into the new GravitHY company?
I would say, it's first, I truly believe, I have been working in the steel industry for 25 years, more or less. And if you compare steel with a lot of other materials, we must admit that the steel is already very efficient. So you emit 2 tons of CO2 per ton of product. But if you compare with the aluminum, fiberglass, with other materials, actually, it still is quite efficient. But the multiplying factor is a big problem. So steel is a 2 billion tons per year industry, and that's why steel is responsible for 7–10% of the global CO2 emissions. So having a project like a GravitHY, which will really make an impact. That's why I always like to say GravitHY is a decarbonization in action. So with partners like those that have been gathered by InnoEnergy, EGHAC around the table, each one bringing the competences which are key for the big challenges that we have in our project, from energy to hydrogen production, to the DRI production, to the understanding of the market, to the logistics and so on, was quite appealing to someone that has as a passion the ability that we change the way the steel is produced and marketed worldwide.
Maybe also a question about, I would say, the magnitude of what we see right now in the hydrogen economy. So projects are popping up everywhere, and I'd like to take the moment to thank Rob that was giving me this interesting line, saying that basically for one final investment decision, there's 600 project announcements. So why are the projects, I would say, not reaching final investment decision when it comes to green hydrogen, and how GravitHY has been structured for success through this value chain approach?
I would say the value chain approach is the answer. So for a project like this, we need to have access to the critical issues that we need to unlock, I would say. So logistics to make iron is a big problem. So we have with our partner EDEC, we have great access to a location which will enable us to be very competitive in getting material in and product out. And then for renewable energy, for decarbonized energy, we have someone like ENGIE. To de-risk and accelerate, we have InnoEnergy and EGHAC. For the 2 key parts of the production, hydrogen and DRI production, we have Plug and Prime Metals. And finally, to understand how the market will perceive the product, how much they are willing to pay as a premium or quantities and so on, we have Forvia. So I would say that the key for success for GravitHY is really the shareholders that are around the table. And at the end of the day, it's about people that we are able to make with the advice, with the support of the shareholders, a winning team in a fully, let's say, synergy with the different levels of authorities. So federal, regional, European. At the end of the day, it's a joint effort, and we understand very well which is the challenge ahead of us. And I believe that with the shareholders, with the team that we are building, with the partners we have, we are going to make it.
So it's quite interesting because listening to the six of you, we've heard a lot the word cooperation. So value chain approach, innovative business model was mentioned by José. Mentioned also this holistic approach, talking about the very end of taker by Jean-Pierre. Obviously, I would say hydrogen, I would say an e-fuels import business that will need a lot of cooperation in terms of infrastructure development. Very interesting, I would say, this cooperation in the green H2 Atlantic between Galp, in Bondalti, and also, I would say, the work that is doing by Sener, developing technology that will serve to everyone. So challenge in terms of business innovation, challenge in terms of technology. That's also something that was going out of the word of Elvira, that was promoting co-development, a word that was also mentioned by Rob. So we need new electrolysis technology. We need also technology that will handle the e-fuels. Innovation, for example, for innovative combustion engine to have available the hydrogen fleet. And of course, innovation for the green steel production. So there's these two, I would say, main items. So we have only 5 minutes remaining. Thank you very much. So maybe just to wrap up, hydrogen demand will be huge, but we know altogether that green hydrogen is no silver bullet. So I looked on Wikipedia. I know it's the best source, but I looked what was a silver bullet. It is a simple and seemingly magical solution to a complicated challenge. So indeed, green hydrogen is not a silver bullet for the challenge that we have, which is the energy transition. So our first challenge is, of course, implementing renewables. We need only for the steel. We've seen that 600 terawatt-hour per year of new power capacities. Only for the shipping will be 3,000 terawatt-hour per year. What we have right now, overall in a year, is produced something like 480 terawatt-hour. So a huge challenge in the implementation of renewable. We'll have to have a better pace of implementation with the associated storage capacity, electrifying whenever possible, recycling whenever possible, and, of course, keeping resources in circulation the most possible. Circular economy is, of course, obviously very important. But then we see as well that green hydrogen will play a key role. It will be the best available technology for many industrial sectors. We've seen the refinery, the fuel sector, the chemical industry, the steel sector, and so on. Rolling out also green hydrogen in heavy good vehicles and shipping aviation sector, of course. So during this panel, we deep dive into the challenges and ambition of heavy industries like the one you are representing, the steel, the chemical, the oil and gas industry, which is now the energy industry. And what we see as well is that getting this project to final investment decision is the priority. So there's innovation and technologies that are required, but that's mostly innovation on business model that are required. Co-developing, cooperation, co-succeeding. That's also the example that we wanted to show here with GravitHY, which promotes the alliance between stakeholders. So let's take rendezvous for next year, where we'll be openly present our new flagship company and the making. Will not say more. Thank you to EIT InnoEnergy for setting us here for this panel. Thank you also for the support of Breakthrough Energy, to the support they provide to EGHAC. And thank you to all the panelists for this very interesting panel. Thank you all.